5 years ago, my life took a turn I never saw coming. I just moved to the US from Russia to study engineering after finishing my national service. The plan was to stay in America for good. I even had relatives in North America who offered to help me settle in, but things didn't pan out, and I ended up figuring it out on my own. I came from a good background. My dad owned a small hotel back home, and that meant we were comfortable, even wealthy by local standards. Still, studying in the US as an international student wasn't cheap. My parents supported me, and I even got a small athletic scholarship because I was tall and decent at basketball and high jump, not amazing but good enough for the team. It wasn't much, but every little bit helped. Not long after starting college, I met Natalia. She was in my English class and studying fine arts. Natalia was from Connecticut, and her family was wealthy, way wealthier than mine. She lived off a trust fund that gave her a ridiculous allowance every month, enough to cover her entire lifestyle. Despite that, she liked to play the role of a struggling artist. I didn't really get it, but it didn't seem like a big deal at the time. We started dating, and after a few months, she moved into my off-campus apartment. Her parents' house was close to campus, but she rarely invited me over. I wasn't sure if it was because they didn't approve of me or because she didn't want me to meet them. Either way, I didn't push. Natalia loved attention. She had this selfie stick she carried everywhere, always ready to document our lives. I wasn't into social media, but she convinced me to sign up, so she could tag me in her posts. Before long, I was connected to all her friends, plus people back home, who found me online. Her friends called me Drago, like the Russian boxer from Rocky IV. I didn't think I looked anything like him, but they thought it was hilarious. Living with Natalia was mostly good, or so I thought. She was funny, creative, and good company. But she was also dramatic, like meltdown in a store because her personal shopper wasn't there dramatic. She could be rude to waitstaff, and sometimes acted like small problems were the end of the world. Still, I thought we got along well, and even imagined we might have a future together. Then, out of nowhere, she brought up the idea of an open relationship. I didn't even know what that was, so she explained it. I told her it wasn't for me. She reassured me she didn't want one either, and was just curious after reading about it. At the time, I believed her, but looking back, I realized she might have already been seeing someone else, or thinking about it. A few weeks later, Natalia told me she wanted to move out. She said our relationship wasn't working but suggested we stay friends. I was upset, but I didn't argue. When she moved out, she left a bunch of her things behind: clothes, paperwork, even some old bank statements. I told her I could drop them off, but she asked me to hold on to them for now. I thought it was a bit strange, but I agreed. Not long after, I noticed she blocked me on social media. She also unfriended anyone connected to me, including people from back home. I had no idea why, but I assumed she wanted a clean break. I didn't reach out again. I thought that was the end of it. I had no idea things were about to get much worse. For a while, life moved on. I focused on finishing my degree and preparing for the next phase of my life. Natalia and I had no contact after she moved out, and I didn't go out of my way to check up on her. I figured we'd both moved on. After graduating, I got accepted into a master's program one state away. I packed in my apartment and hired a service to help with the move. I even found a used car to make things easier. While going through my things, I noticed I still had some of Natalia's stuff, mostly clothes, a few papers, and those trust fund statements she used to leave lying around. I thought about reaching out to her, but decided against it. She hadn't come back for them, so I figured it wasn't important to her. I spent the next year buried in my studies, barely having time for anything else. Most of the boxes I brought to my new place stayed sealed, especially the ones with things I didn't need, like old textbooks or heavy winter clothes. By the time I finished my master's, I was ready to head back to Russia. I sold my car, got rid of some furniture, and shipped my belongings home. It wasn't until I unpacked everything back in Russia that I came across Natalia's old stuff again. Her clothes, some designer purses, and those trust fund statements were still there. I decided to try reaching out to her one last time. I sent her a text, emailed her, and even checked her social media. Nothing. Her number was either changed or blocked, and she'd completely erased me from her online presence. Out of curiosity, I looked at her public social media accounts, and that's when things got weird. Natalia hadn't changed much. She was still posting photos of herself dressed like a quirky artist and sharing her life online. But the more I scrolled, the stranger it got. She was telling everyone she grew up poor, talking about how she struggled to make ends meet, and acting like she was just barely scraping by as an artist. She'd even stolen a story. I once told her about how my relatives survived on grass stew during the war and was now claiming it as her own experience. But the part that made my stomach turn was when I saw posts about me. In one, someone commented on a meme about abuse, and Natalia replied, "Yeah, my ex, Opie, tried to destroy my self-esteem. He wasn't shy about threatening me either." Her friends jumped on it, saying things like, "If I ever see him, I'll make him pay," and other threats. I was furious. Natalia was lying about me, accusing me of things I'd never done, and letting her friends run wild with these ideas. She even suggested in another post that I cheated my way through school and that my parents were involved in the Russian mafia. It was ridiculous, but the comments were full of support for her. People were calling her brave for surviving her abusive relationship. Then I found something even worse. Natalia claimed she couldn't have children because of a traumatic assault. She didn't name me directly, but the implication was clear. This was a complete fabrication. I knew she couldn't have kids because she told me about her decision to have surgery to prevent it. She even showed me the paperwork back when we were dating. Scrolling further, I saw that she had altered old photos of us. She'd XC'd out my face and added captions accusing me of all kinds of horrible things. Some of her friends were even talking about reporting me to the authorities or contacting my university to have my degree revoked. I was livid. I hadn't done anything to her. I'd been nothing but supportive during our relationship and had even stayed friendly after we broke up. But now she was dragging my name through the mud to boost her own image as a victim. At first, I tried to brush it off. I was back in Russia, starting my career, and didn't want to get caught up in petty drama. But the more I thought about it, the angrier I got. Natalia was lying about me to make herself look better, and I wasn't going to let her get away with it. That's when I remembered the trust fund statements. Those papers were proof that Natalia was far from the struggling artist she pretended to be. I decided to send them back to her, along with all the clothes and other things she'd left behind. But I wasn't just going to mail them to her directly. I had a plan. I packed everything Natalia had left behind into a box, her designer clothes, expensive purses, and most importantly, the trust fund statements. Before sealing it up, I wrote a note explaining that these were her belongings from when she lived with me. I didn't address the note to her personally. Instead, I sent the box to her workplace, a non-profit organization she was apparently very proud of, judging by her social media posts. But I didn't stop there. Before mailing the box, I scanned her trust fund statements and paired them with screenshots of her social media posts. In one, Natalia claimed to be living paycheck to paycheck. In another, she talked about how hard it was to be an artist in a cruel world. I highlighted the glaring contradictions, like her six-figure allowance and the trust fund that would sustain her for life. One by one, I merged these hypocritical posts with the evidence of her actual financial status. I saved the best for last, Natalia's post about being unable to have children due to trauma. I combined it with the PDF she had emailed me years ago, confirming her elective surgery to prevent pregnancy. I redacted her parents' exact address, but left enough details to show it was legitimate. Once I had everything prepared, I decided to take things a step further. I reached out to one of my old friends who is still connected to Natalia on social media. He didn't speak English, which explained why he hadn't noticed all the drama, but he was more than happy to help. Using his account, we began posting the evidence on Natalia's profile and tagging as many of her friends as possible. Her public image unraveled almost instantly. The comments section on her posts exploded. People were shocked to see the truth about her financial situation and her lies about her past. The trust fund statements, highlighted with her absurd allowance and total balance, destroyed her struggling artist narrative. Screenshots of her accusing me of abuse were placed side by side with evidence of her manipulative behavior. Her friends, who had been so quick to support her before, now turned against her. The backlash was brutal. Some called her a liar, Others simply unfollowed her in silence. Her boyfriend, yes, the one who looked like a less responsible version of me, wasn't spared either. He was clearly blindsided by the revelations about Natalia's wealth and deception. It didn't take long for the fallout to spread. Natalia's follower count plummeted across all platforms. Her carefully curated online persona crumbled as people pieced together the truth. Friends and acquaintances she had worked so hard to impress now saw her for what she really was, a rich girl pretending to be poor for attention. A few days later, the nonprofit where Natalia worked called me. A woman from their team thanked me for the box and explained that they'd given it to Natalia. She mentioned how shocked they were to see the trust fund statements and expensive designer items. Apparently, Natalia had tried to deny the items were hers, claiming I was trying to smear her. But when she saw the bank statements, she couldn't argue. To make things even better, Natalia didn't take most of the items. She left the designer clothes and purses behind, claiming they weren't hers. The nonprofit workers asked if they could keep the items, and I told them to do whatever they wanted. If Natalia wanted to abandon her expensive things, that was on her. The woman also let it slip that Natalia had recently quit her job and moved back in with her parents. The irony wasn't lost on me. After all her posturing about being independent, she was retreating to her family's mansion. As for Natalia's social media presence, it vanished almost overnight. Her accounts either went private or were deleted entirely. It was like she had been wiped off the internet. For months, I occasionally checked to see if she would reappear online. She didn't. Whatever life she was trying to build for herself had been blown apart by her own lies. Months passed, and Natalia became nothing more than a distant memory. Her social media accounts stayed offline, and the internet drama finally quieted down. Occasionally, I wondered how she explained everything to her new boyfriend or the friends who once admired her. I imagined the awkward conversations, the excuses, the backpedaling. Whatever story she told, the damage was done. Her carefully constructed persona had collapsed, and there was no coming back from that. I never heard directly from Natalia again. The closest I got was the call from her former workplace about the box I sent. Even then, she didn't try to reach out or confront me. Maybe she knew she had nothing to say. Maybe she was too embarrassed. Either way, I wasn't interested in hearing from her. Looking back, I still don't fully understand why Natalia turned on me. We had no major fights, no dramatic breakup. I was always good to her and even stayed respectful when she decided to leave. Maybe she needed a villain to make her stories more compelling, or maybe she just enjoyed the attention. Whatever the reason, it wasn't worth dwelling on. In the end, I moved on. I had a solid career in Russia, supportive friends, and a life I was proud of. Natalia's lies might have caused me stress in a moment, but they didn't define me. If anything, they reminded me of the importance of integrity. As for Natalia, I hope she learned something from all of this. Maybe she'll reflect on her actions one day and realize how her lies hurt people. Or maybe she won't. Either way, it's not my concern anymore. If there's one takeaway from this experience, it's this. The truth has a way of coming out, no matter how well someone tries to bury it. People like Natalia, who build their lives on lies, always end up trapped by them. If you enjoyed this story and want more content like this, make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel for more life lessons and fascinating tales.